Well, good morning, Rotary District 7770. It is Friday, May 22nd, and welcome to Conversations with Rotary Action People. I'm Donald Hovis with the Chicora Rotary Club here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And the topic of today's talk is remember the selective service and does it still exist? And our special guest today, joining us from the beautiful Fountain Inn, South Carolina, up in the upstate, Major Erik Dofelmier. Good morning, Erik.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Doing wonderful today. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
As we kick off here on the Zoom call, if you're watching us here on Zoom, how about place in the chat box where you're watching from and your Rotary Club? And also, we're streaming this over on the district Facebook page. If you would please post a comment below the video stream on where you're watching from and your Rotary Club as well. To kick us off, I'm going to do the vision statement of Rotary. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Erik, I first want to say thank you for your service to our wonderful country. And I want you to start off your talk today talking a little bit about your service to our country and just share your story with everyone.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for the support. First of all, I really appreciate it. Just like any young high schooler, I was always interested in serving in, well, not like any, but my father was military. And so because of that, I was interested from a young age in joining the military and in particular flying. And so I guess at a young age, it was kind of indoctrinated in me, so to speak. But ever since, being a kid, I always wanted to fly airplanes. And so I entered high school with the intent of finally either going to the Air Force Academy or going to an ROTC scholarship and trying to pursue my dream of flying that way. I ended up commissioning out of University of Utah Air Force ROTC in 2005. And was assigned to Hill Air Force Base for a few years before I eventually made it my way to pilot training, where I ended up flying the C-17 for an assignment before going to instruct on the Air Force T-6 program, where we instructed the primary fundamentals of flying, aerobatics, and formation in the T-6. And I did that for 3 years before I decided to do something different and become a reservist and work for the airlines as well. So I flew the T-6 as a reservist for about 3 years while flying for Delta Airlines, where eventually I decided to leave the T-6 and become a reservist with the Selective Service System.
And also, outside of the Selective Service, you are a pilot with Delta Airlines. I want you to talk now about your Delta Airlines career.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, barring current circumstances, it's a great career. I'm on the Airbus 319, 320, 321, so fly primarily domestic. I'm also a simulator instructor down for Delta, so I teach all the new Airbus pilots how to fly, whether they're brand new to Delta or they're just new to the airplane. So I teach in the simulators about 6 to 9 months out of the year, and then the rest of the time I fly the line like a standard airline pilot.
You still get that thrill when you're flying?
Absolutely, sir. In my opinion, it's the greatest job in the world. Best office view ever.
I bet you have some really cool photos from up there in the cockpit. That'd be really cool to see one day.
Yes, sir. It's beautiful. I enjoy it.
Well, you're here today to talk to us about selective service and does it still exist? So my first question for you is, does it still exist?
Absolutely, it does exist. The problem is just getting the word out, because right now, adult males 18 to 25 are still required to register for the Selective Service. And unfortunately, we're not getting the word out as well as we probably could. Where if they fail to register, then they're not able to get federal loans, and they're not always qualified to receive the federal financial aid as well. But it does still exist. And men 18 years to 25 are still required to register with Selective Service.
And I understand there's like a Selective Service board. So what's a local board member?
Awesome. Um, that's primarily my main bread and butter, is to find local board members. So in a nutshell, if there's ever a military draft, which we really can't see that happening again, but we're still required by law to maintain these draft boards. These local board members will come together and determine the constant objector cases of the draftees within their particular counties. So for instance, if the proverbial balloon goes up and they reinstate the military draft, once these 18 to 25-year-olds go through the military entrance processing system and they're deemed fit for military service, if they then determine that they are constant objectors, these local board members come together and determine whether or not they get exempt or deferred from military service. Now in peacetime, there really are no requirements. There are no meetings. There's no mandatory paperwork. Basically, we just need civic-minded individuals willing to raise their hands if the balloon goes up.
And who can serve? Guys only, or guys and girls?
No, sir, both. Men and women, 18 years and older. As long as they're U.S. citizens, they don't have a felony conviction, they're not current military, law enforcement, or they're not judges, and they're not retired military. So those are pretty much the only requirements. Anyone, outside of that, good to go. We'd love to have them.
So what's in it for the volunteer?
Honestly, it's just a way to give back to your community, much like, Rotary Club members. That's who we generally look for, just those that are willing to, to step up. As of now, people that tend to be leaders in the community are the ones we're looking for, because they're willing to help and willing to serve. It's a great volunteer opportunity. It's very easy. There's very little time commitment. It's a great resume bullet for those that are getting ready to enter the workforce if they're fresh out of college. Or even in college, and it's you get a nomination from the state governor, and you get a presidential appointment. So it's pretty neat.
And just before I go any further, Eric, I do want to mention a few key people that I see here on the Zoom call for your reference. A former district governor from our Rotary district, from the Rotary Club of Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, Mr. David Terrard and his wife, Susan. Good morning, guys. The district governor-elect, her term begins in, probably 38, 39 days here. From the Rotary Club of Myrtle Beach, Ms. Pauline Levesque. Our public image chair for our Rotary district, from the Rotary Club of 5 Points in Columbia, Ms. Mary Gask. I don't see any cats yet today. Maybe they'll make an appearance here before the end of the meeting. And our district communications chair from the Rotary Club of Somerville Evening in Somerville, South Carolina, Mr. Terry Moore. Good morning, Terry. Thanks for running the stream today. Eric, I do want to say one of Pauline's goals during her year as district governor is recognizing those veterans and people in our Rotary clubs in our district that have served. So, you're kind of talking to the masses here in terms of you serving. There's a lot of people in our Rotary clubs that have served as well. So thank you again for your service. I'll probably will say that 5 more times before the end of this, but truly can't thank you enough.
Appreciate it.
In terms of the selective service, is there a time commitment?
As far as the local board member?
Correct.
No, sir, there isn't. So basically, if we could, whoever wants to join, we'd love to have them. And if for some reason they're like, hey, this is, my life's too busy, I just can't do it, that's fine. We just take you off the board member program and we'll try to find you a replacement. The max you can serve is 20 years. So at the end of 20 years, that's it. You get a letter thanking you for your service. But there is no min requirement. So again, if you decide to sign up and you're like, hey, my life's just too busy right now, I can't do it, no harm, no foul. We take you off, no big deal, and we just find a replacement.
And I did make one mistake earlier when I was introducing a few key people. My apologies, my fault here. Former district governor of our district, Mr. Bob Gross. Mr. Bob Gross, thank you for being here, sir. Sorry I forgot you earlier. I do sincerely apologize. So in terms
John,
of yes, sir.
That's district governor nominee designate. I'll be the district governor in 2 years. But that's okay.
I'm all off here today. We're on a different meeting ID. Who knows? Sorry to everyone. I will get with it here. Too many. This is my third Zoom meeting of the day. So my apologies. Erik, back to selective service. Can we say, or can you tell us in South Carolina, are there any vacancies right now?
Yes, sir. We actually have multiple vacancies. Lexington, Aiken, Richland, Florence, Dillon, Kershaw, York, Union, Williamsburg, Newberry, Georgetown, McCormick, and Orangeburg all have upcoming vacancies. However, Director Benton, with the head of the Selective Service, is actually mandated now that we are able to go over our board member numbers. So previously, we were only able to recruit 5 board members per board. And if we recruited over that, they would go on standby. And so when one would retire, move, quit, then we could replace them. Now we're able to go over 5. So that being said, we can take anyone from anywhere in South Carolina. We'd love to have them. It doesn't matter where, we just have these vacancies coming up. So we'd love to fill those. But again, if you live in Greenville, Pickens County, wherever, Charleston County, we'd love to have you. It doesn't matter.
So if you have a question for Major, please post it in the chat box here on Zoom, or if you're watching on Facebook, if you would post it as a comment below the live stream. And yes, Bob, I'm very sorry. There's another person that I forgot that is on the call. I don't know because it doesn't have her last name there, but thank you for bringing it up. Former District Governor Paula Matthews is on here. So, Paula, thank you very much. I wish I knew that, but like I said, it only says Paula, so I did not know. There are some questions coming through, Erik. So sure. I think the first one I'll let you answer is, how many people are on the board?
Normally we have 5 people per board per county, but some of the counties that are smaller will tend to share a board with another county that's small. But they both comprise of 5-member boards.
And you answered it earlier, but those 5 people, there's no time limit that they're on the board.
No, sir, no time limit. Other than 20. 20 is the max, but there's no minimum. So 20, if they sign up, here in 2020, so 2040, they have to retire off the board. So 20 years is the max, no min.
And one person would like us to reiterate on what being a board member involves.
Honestly, like I said earlier, there's very, very little time commitment. In my opinion, it's actually one of the easiest volunteer opportunities I can think of off the top of my head, strictly for the fact there are no mandatory meetings. So once we appoint you, the way it works is I'll send you an application. Whoever's interested, I send them an application, they fill it out, they can email it back to me. And then at this point, I send it off to our state director, who approves these appointments. And then once that happens, you get the letter from the governor. And then at that point, 6 months later, within 6 months, there's going to be an online training session, which takes maybe about an hour at most, and that's it. There's no mandatory meetings, no other requirements. It's just everything's done online. We're trying to move to more of a online type system because it's easier for people's busy lives.
All right. And this is a question, Major, about more so flying than not the selective service. How would you compare flying the Airbus planes by joystick with the other planes like Boeing with a wheel?
I enjoy it much more. I flew nothing but stick airplanes up and with the exception of the T1 going through Air Force pilot training. So I really enjoy flying, having the stick there. The beauty of the Airbus is it's a side stick. So you have the tray table, so you're able to have your meals. You can have your publications when you're flying, the maps, everything else. It's just gives you a lot more open space versus having something just right there in your way. So I prefer the stick.
And I guess, is it easier to fly than a wheel? I
think so. It's just more comfortable ergonomically. It just feels more just efficient flying. Now, obviously, with me, I'm usually in the right seat. I'm an FO, first officer, so I'm in the right seat. Now, the captain, they fly in the left seat. And then, obviously, if you're right-handed, it might be a little harder to fly with your left hand. But after training, everyone's able to do it with their left hand.
So I want to know, how long does it – I mean, I'm sure it takes years to become a Delta Airlines RO in your case. how many years does it take?
Well, it depends on the route you take. So Delta's comprised of both military, prior military, and civilian pilots. So the way that it works for me is I went through military pilot training, taught the Air Force way, flew for the Air Force, trained on all those Air Force planes, and had to get a certain amount of flight hours before I was able to apply to Delta to meet their minimum requirements. Civilian pilots obviously take a different route, but generally the way it works for the civilians, they start off, learning, getting all their ratings in like a Cessna or small airplane, and then they go instruct on it to get what's known as pilot and command time, to build up their PIC time. And then once again, they meet their PIC requirements for Delta, then they apply as well. So it takes, to fly mainline, I would say it probably takes a good 2 years to get the time and experience. And obviously that varies on environmental, economic conditions too. So if we're short on pilots, then generally they can be less picky. And then if they're fat on pilots, then obviously they can be more picky and start aiming for the Thunderbird pilots and all the rock stars from the civilian side as well.
So you being in the upstate, where do you typically fly out from? Atlanta, Greenville?
I commute out of Greenville, so a lot of times I drive to Atlanta. Obviously, with what's going on in the traffic, it's been pretty light. So I'll fly or drive to Atlanta, and that's where I start my trips. So I usually pick them up and then fly from Atlanta to wherever it goes. I try to bid my trips on legs. I don't like to do 3 or 4 leg days. I try to fly 1 or 2 leg days. I really don't care where I lay over. Although some of my favorite layovers are San Diego. That's a beautiful layover. Cancun's a fun one. But yeah, it's good. I enjoy it, but mostly out of Greenville.
And we got some more questions, but the last one in terms, I think, of your flying here is what's the average rate of speed that you're typically going at, let's say 30,000 feet?
See, we cruise around, 0.76, so maybe 7 miles a minute. So.
Wow. Because you barely feel like you're moving when you're back in the back. It feels like you're kind of just barely going.
Yeah, it's great. It's when you really think about it, it's amazing. You're sitting in a, if you're in first class, you're basically in a lazy boy, just 30,000 feet above the earth, just cruising along, watching your movies, eating snacks. It's great.
So when was the last time the Selective service was used?
Oh my goodness. I think the last time was Vietnam. That was, I think, the last time the draft was ever utilized. But again, we have these local draft boards just because you never know. We always have to maintain that readiness, and that's why we do it.
Let's see. Here we have a question with respect to the Selective service. Both men and women can volunteer to serve in armed forces, but only men are required to apply in Selective service. Any consideration being given to bring this into alignment?
There is been some talk. There has been some consideration, but until Congress actually passes legislation amending the current law, men are still the only ones required to register.
And then one more question. This came from Facebook here. Someone wants to know, what do you think of the San Diego airport in terms of takeoff and landing?
Yeah, San Diego, it's a fun one. Usually we fly 321s in there. It is a short runway, and there's that little parking structure that's just over it. So landing there tends to be a little more challenging than taking off. Taking off's not too bad, but landing can get a little busy as well. And they tend to keep you fast. So if you're flying, a heavier airplane with more gas, more people, they tend to slow down a lot slower. So when you're trying to get configured, get the gear down, everything else, you can get yourself a little bit behind the airplane in a quick second. But it's fun. It's challenging.
And just a fun fact for everybody watching on the Zoom and the Facebook here today, thank you for being here. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where I am, has the longest runway in the United States. I don't even know if you know that, Major, but that's a fun fact for you about Myrtle Beach.
Nice.
We're able to land the space shuttle here and a lot of other things. So pretty neat.
No, that's awesome. That's cool.
is there any negative stigma attached to an objector?
I don't think so. Not anymore. And, I think Hacksaw Ridge, the movie Hacksaw Ridge kind of, laid that out in a good way too. So, people have their reasons. You can't necessarily fault them for it. So I don't think there's necessarily a stigma associated if someone decides they want to be a conscious objector.
Well, once again, thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service. This was really, really informative today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the support. And thank you for all those that also have served. And thank you guys for what you do, because you guys are leaders in your community and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I would be remiss if I did not introduce one more person today. They may not be on any longer, but I will say we had our incoming Rotary International Director, Peter Kyle, was on the Facebook feed earlier this morning. So thank you, Peter, for being on today with us and hearing all the good things happening down here in District 7770. Thanks again, Erik.
Thank you, sir. Y'all have a great...
Look, let's see. We have one more comment here. Someone thinks here the Air Force Base in Beaufort is the second longest runway on the East Coast and is the backup shuttle landing site. That's very interesting.
Awesome.
So right here in South Carolina, you got the two longest runways, one in the country and the other one on the East Coast. So how about that?
That's great. So,
thanks, Erik.
thank you all. Have a great one. Have a great weekend. Have a happy Memorial Day.
As a reminder, folks, we will not have a CWRAP Conversations with Rotary Action People on Monday, so we want you to enjoy your Monday Memorial Day holiday. In closing today, we'll recite the Rotary four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's a wrap for Conversations with Rotary Action People for Friday, May 22nd. We will see you guys on Wednesday, May 27th for your next Conversations with Rotary Action People. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.